U-47, North Sea 13. October 1939, 1915. The North Sea was a sheet of cold black glass. My binoculars, slick with spray, pressed hard against my eye sockets, a futile attempt to pierce the gathering dark. From the conning tower of U-47, the world was a narrow, pitching circle of grey sea and grey sky. 10 degrees to port, helmsman, I called down the hatch, my voice tight against the wind. Maintain 2/3. 10 degrees port, 2/3, Herr Callot. The acknowledgement echoed back, thin and metallic. Below my feet, the diesels thrummed, a steady, life-giving heartbeat that pushed us toward the Orkneys, toward the Lion's Den, toward Scapa Flow. This mission was madness. I knew it. Admiral Dönitz knew it. But it was a calculated, necessary madness. Our U-boat arm was small, and Britain's Royal Navy was a colossus. We were a fly plotting to sting a bull, to strike at Scapa Flow. The sacred, inviolable heart of British sea power was more than a military objective. It was an act of profound, psychological warfare. I clutched the steel rail, my knuckles white. The reconnaissance photos from Oberleutnant Wellner were burned into my memory. The grainy images showed a vast, placid anchorage, protected by a ring of islands. And the entrances, my God, the entrances, block ships, booms and 7-knot tides, all except one. A narrow, shallow channel between Bury and South Ronaldsay, called Kirk Sound. On the charts, it was a sliver of blue, dismissed by the British as unnavigable. On the charts, it was suicide. But Wellner's photos showed gaps. The block ships sunk, they were old, and the tides had scoured the channel, leaving just enough room, perhaps, for a U-boat to slip through on the surface. Perhaps. Time? 1WO? My first watch officer, Engelbert Enderas, clicked his stopwatch. 23:07, Herr Callot. We are on schedule. Holm Sound in 1 hour. I nodded, not taking my eyes from the horizon. Enderas was a good man. Steady. We all were. The 44 men sealed in this steel tube with me were the best in the Kriegsmarine. They had to be. I trusted them with my life, and they trusted me with theirs. It was a terrible, crushing burden. Clear the bridge, I ordered. Prepare to dive. The lookout scrambled down the hatch. I took one last breath of the clean, salt-laden air, tasting the freedom of the surface. It would be the last I'd taste for, well, perhaps forever. I followed them down, pulling the hatch shut over my head. The heavy clang and the spin of the locking wheel was a sound of finality. The world shrank to a 70-meter tube of recycled air, smelling of diesel, unwashed bodies, cabbage, and the sharp metallic tang of the electric motors. Alarm! I barked. The klaxon blared, a jarring, ugly sound. Fluten! Venting main ballast, reported the chief engineer, Johann Friedrich Wessels. The boat tilted, a sickening forward lurch as the North Sea embraced us. The deck plates groaned under the building pressure. Depth 10 meters. Level the boat. Electric motors engaged. The roar of the diesels died, replaced by the faint, high whine of the electrics. The silence of the deep was not silent at all. It was the sound of our own machinery, the creaks of the hull, the muffled rush of water, and the pounding of my own heart. Periscope depth, I ordered. The polished steel cylinder hissed up from its well. I grabbed the handles, my eyes gluing to the eyepiece. Black water, then the foaming crests of the waves, then the dark, jagged line of the Scottish coast. There it is, gentlemen, I murmured, more to myself than to Enderos and the navigator at the chart table. The gates. We were blind. Navigating a U-boat through a treacherous, shallow channel at night, against a rising tide, is not a science. It is a dark art, a prayer whispered to steel and water. Depth under keel, 4 meters. The navigator's voice was strained. 4 meters, Wessels repeated from his station, his hand on the hydroplane controls. Too shallow. The tide was running against us, a rip-tide that grabbed our 700-ton boat and tried to dash it against the shore. "Periscope!" I snapped. The view was a nightmare of dark water and darker shadows. The block ships, sunken freighters meant to stop this very thing, loomed like the ribs of dead whales. "Hard to starboard! All stop!" A shudder ran through the boat, a low, scraping metallic groan. Every man froze. In the red gloom of the control room, faces were chalk-white masks of terror. "Damage report, LI!" I yelled. "Scraping, Herr Callot," Wessels replied, his voice miraculously calm. "We're on the bottom." Mud, I think. But the current has us. We were grounded, aground in the main entrance to Scapa Flow. My blood ran colder than the sea outside. "Full reverse, both motors!" The electrics whined in protest. The hull vibrated, a deep, agonizing shudder. Nothing. We were stuck fast. This was it. The end. A glorious, idiotic failure. We would be here when the sun rose, a sitting duck for the first British patrol boat. "Sir," Enderas said, his voice quiet. "The tide. It's still rising. It might lift us. Or it might wedge us harder," I countered. But he was right. It was our only chance. "Stop motors. Rig for silent running. No one so much as coughs." The minutes stretched into eternity. The only sound was the creak of the hull and the drip, drip, drip of condensation from a bulkhead. The air grew thick. I could feel the CO2 building in my lungs, the damp chill seeping into my bones. Then a subtle shift, a faint groan. "We're moving," Wessels whispered. She's swinging free. Slow ahead, both." Hard to port. With another sickening scrape, U-47 tore free from the mud. We were moving, but the channel was too shallow, the current too strong. I couldn't risk the hydroplane snagging. There was only one option. It was the decision that would seal our fate, one way or another. "LI," I said, my voice hoarse. "Prepare to surface." Enderas looked at me as if I had lost my mind. "Sir?" "On the surface? We'll be ripped apart on the bottom. Our only chance is to ride the tide through, on the surface, like a damned torpedo boat." I pointed to the chart. "Here. The channel is narrowest, but deepest. We go over the anchor cable of the Seriano. Blow main ballast tanks. Surface, surface, surface." The boat surged upward, the sound of compressed air roaring through the tanks. We broke the surface with a cough, the boat wallowing in the swell. "Open the hatch!" I scrambled up the ladder, Enderas at my heels. The wind hit me like a physical blow. We were in the channel. The block ships were 10 meters to either side, their rusted superstructures black against the night sky, which was now illuminated by a sickening, brilliant curtain of green and white. The aurora borealis, the northern lights. "My God," Enderas breathed. "It's as bright as day." "A car!" "On the shore," a lookout yelled. Headlights. A car on the coastal road, its beams sweeping across the water. They pinned us. A black, low, 70-meter-long U-boat, caught dead in the water, lit like a stage performer. "Still," I hissed. "Don't move a muscle." My hand went to the flare pistol, then stopped. Firing would be an admission. We sat, frozen, as the headlights played over our conning tower. I could see the driver's silhouette. He must see us. He must. The car stopped. I waited for the shout. The alarm. The first shot from a shore battery. The car moved on. He had seen us. And he had mistaken us for a small, friendly patrol boat, or perhaps had not been able to process the sheer impossibility of what he was looking at. "LI, slow ahead. Both motors," I whispered, my knees weak with relief. "Navigator, talk to me." "Passing the last block ship. Now, Herr Callot." We were in. We were inside Scapa Flow. 027. The lake. The anchorage was vast and empty. I swept the horizon with my binoculars, my heart sinking. Where is the fleet? Where is the home fleet? Donitz's intelligence had pointed to a massive concentration of ships, but the lake was a black, empty void. The British had, by sheer luck, moved the fleet to Loch Ewe. All this for nothing? Enderas murmured, voicing my own despair. Keep searching. There must be something. We crept forward on our electric motors, a black shadow in a lake of shadows. And then, mast! Starboard bow! I swung the glasses. There, a shadow against the shadows, a massive, looming silhouette, a battleship. Identify. 4-turret design, high superstructure. It's a Revenge class, sir. A Revenge class. 30,000 tons of British pride. I felt a cold, predatory thrill replace my disappointment. Further north, Enderas said, pointing. Another capital ship. I think, yes, the Pegasus, the seaplane carrier. But my eyes were on the battleship. She was at anchor, cold and dark, asleep. Target is the Revenge, I said. My voice was suddenly flat, all emotion drained, replaced by a cold, mathematical focus. Range, 3,000 meters. We'll close. We slipped through the water, the only sound the faint hum of the motors and the ripple at our bow. No one hailed us. No alarms. The arrogance of the British was our greatest ally. They never dreamed we could be here. Range 1,500. Halt. The control room was a tomb of silent, focused men. Bow tubes 1 through 4. Make ready. Tubes 1 through 4 ready, came the reply from the torpedo room. Flood tubes. The hiss of water was loud in the silence. Open outer doors. Target solution set. Bearing 045. Speed, 0. Rohr 1. Rohr 2. Rohr 3. The boat shuddered slightly as 4,000 pounds of steel and high explosives shot from the tubes, propelled by a burst of compressed air. Start the clock, I said to Enderas. The wait was the worst part of any attack. The agonizing seconds, stretching out, filled with the hope and dread of the thud. 1 minute. 2 minutes. Torpedoes should have. A dull metallic clang. Then a single muffled explosion. I looked through the binoculars. A plume of water at the Royal Oak's bow. But she wasn't sinking. She wasn't even raising the alarm. We hit her anchor chain, I swore, slamming my fist on the railing. A single hit on the bow. On the battleship, a few lights flickered on. A searchlight beam lanced out, but it swept the sky, not the water. They thought it was an internal explosion, an onboard accident. They're not even moving, Enderas said in disbelief. They just signed their death warrant, I snarled. Hard to starboard. Bring the stern tube to bear. The 47 turned slowly in the dark water. Stern tube, make ready. Another torpedo streaked away. Another agonizing wait. A miss. Nothing. The torpedo must have malfunctioned. Reload bow tubes. Schnell. This was our last chance. The British were confused, but they wouldn't be for long. Below, I could hear the clang of the loading crews, the heavy, grunting work of manhandling 2-ton torpedoes into their tubes. It was the sound of frantic, desperate labor. Tubes 1, 2, and 4 ready, Herr Callow. Bring bow to bear. Range, 1,200 meters. This time we do not miss. I gave the firing solution myself. Spread the salvo. Aim for the midships and the stern. Rohr 1, Rohr 2, Rohr 4. 3 torpedoes. 3 white streaks in the black water, energized by the eerie light of the aurora. I didn't breathe. I just watched. The first torpedo struck, a bright white flash amidships. A second later, the second hit. And then the third. The Royal Oak did not just explode. She detonated. A column of fire and molten steel erupted 1,000 feet into the night sky. A terrifying, beautiful, apocalyptic pillar of destruction. The sound, a deafening, rolling crack boom, hit us a second later, a physical blow that staggered the men on the bridge. U-47 shuddered violently from the concussion. The giant battleship, her back broken, rolled over. She was listing. 40 degrees, 60, 90. In the ghastly, flickering light of the flames, I could see men, tiny black figures, jumping from her decks into the burning, oil-slicked water. 13 minutes, from the first hit to the last. 13 minutes. The Royal Oak, pride of the Royal Navy, was gone. "L.I.," I said, my voice a stranger's. "Full power, both motors. Get us out of here. Now." 0116. The escape. Alarm, alarm, alarm. The sound of sirens and whistles carried across the water. Scapa Flow, the sleeping giant, was awake and in a blind panic. Searchlights, dozens of them, stabbed the darkness, crisscrossing the lake. "Dive! Dive! Dive!" I roared, tumbling down the hatch, sealing it above me. "Take her to 80 meters. Rig for silent running." We crash-dived. And then came the sound. Ping. The sound of hell. The active ASDIC. The British sonar. Ping. Ping. They were hunting. "A destroyer, sir," the sonar operator reported, his knuckles white on his headset. "He has us. Bearing 090. Closing fast. Ping, ping, ping." He was right on top of us. "Hard to port. Emergency dive. 100 meters. The boat groaned, the hull popping and creaking as the pressure mounted. Whump, boom! The first depth charge. Close. It threw the boat sideways. Light bulbs shattered, showering the control room in glass. A man screamed in the darkness before an officer slapped him quiet. "Depth charges. Crack boom! Crack boom!" A salvo of 4. They bracketed us. The boat leaped and shuddered. A pipe burst in the engine room. "Wassereinbruch!" Wessels and his team were already on it, the sound of hammering and shouting echoing through the hull. "He's coming around for another pass," the sonar man said, his voice trembling. He's slowing." Ping. Ping, ping, ping. "He's lost us," I yelled. "The thermal layers." "He's lost contact. Now is our chance. All stop." We drift. The silence was absolute. We hung suspended in the black, cold water, 100 meters down, every man holding his breath. The air was a foul, oily soup of CO2 and fear. Men were panting, their lungs burning. We heard the thump, thump, thump of the destroyer's propellers passing directly overhead. He was confused, casting about. Whump! 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 He dropped another pattern, but it was blind. The explosions were distant, muffled. "Navigator," I whispered. "Our course for Kirk Sound." 185, Herr Callot. "But it's impossible. We'll never make it blind." "We will. Slow ahead. Port motor only. Dead slow." We crept through the deep for an hour. Every creak of the hull was a gunshot. Every drip of water was a hammer blow. The destroyer was still up there, pinging, hunting, a relentless, frustrated predator. But we were nearing the sound. The shallow, treacherous water that had been our hell on the way in was now our only salvation. The destroyer wouldn't dare follow us in. "Depth, 30 meters, the navigator warned. 20. "Surface," I ordered. "Blow tanks. We run the gauntlet. Breaching whale." I was the first one on the bridge. The air was sweet, life-giving, and the channel was lit by a searchlight. A destroyer, the Express, was guarding the entrance we had used. She had us. "Volak Voros," I roared. "Flank speed, both diesels." The diesels ignited with a coughing, thunderous roar. The boat leaped forward, a bone-jarring vibration. A gun flashed from the destroyer. A shell screamed over our heads. Another flash. A geyser of water erupted 10 meters to starboard, drenching the bridge. "Hard to port." We zigzagged, a desperate, hunted rabbit. The destroyer was faster, but we were in the shallows. "The block ship! Dead ahead! Hard to starboard!" I yelled. We swung wildly, our hull scraping the Seriano for the second time that night. The destroyer's guns flashed again, but we were in the narrowest part of the channel. She couldn't depress her guns enough to hit us. We were through. We were past her. "Alarm! Crash dive!" For the last time, I pulled the hatch. We plunged into the relative safety of the open sea as shells splashed harmlessly where we had been. We ran deep and silent for 2 hours, The thump-thump of the destroyer's propellers fading behind us, the distant whump of her depth charges a final, angry farewell. At 4 o'clock, I gave the order. Surface. I climbed to the bridge. The air was clean. The sea was empty. To the east, the sky was just beginning to pale. We were alone. We were alive. Enderas climbed up beside me, his face streaked with grease and sweat. He was smiling. "Well, Herr Kallo," he said, his voice hoarse. That was eventful. I looked back toward the Orkneys, where a pillar of black smoke was rising from the heart of Scapa Flow, a monument to the 833 men we had just killed. I felt no triumph, only a profound, crushing exhaustion, and the cold knowledge that this was only the beginning. "Send the signal to BDU," I said quietly. "What do I write, sir?" I thought for a moment. "Just this. U-47 in Scapa Flow. Battleship Royal Oak sunk. We are returning."